I call to order this meeting of the Minnesota State Canvassing Board, the hour being 1 p.m. This meeting, I will say, just for the record, is being televised live on House TV, and the recording of the proceedings will thereafter be available to the public. Before I have our members introduce themselves to the public and to those gathered here today, I just wanted to say a word for the benefit of the public about what this meeting really is. This is something that's in the Minnesota Constitution, so it can't be done away with by a legislature or a governor or a secretary of state. It would only be able to be done away with via constitutional amendment. So it's in our state constitution. And it's the culmination of a long, long process. All 87 Minnesota counties must canvass and then certify results. And then we then, in this proceeding, in some ways combine those reports for the benefit of the public. At this meeting, we will hear that canvassing report, and we will vote formally on whether to adopt it and to certify the 2022 general election. We will also, at this meeting, be setting in motion the process of post-election reviews, more on that later, and we will prepare for the possibility, probably likelihood, of one or more recounts. Before I ask members to introduce themselves, there's just one item of formal business. I need to make a formal appointment, which I will now do, of Justice G. Barry Anderson to replace, for today's purposes, Justice Ann McKeag, who could not make it. So Justice Anderson is with us, and I will now do that formally, make that appointment. So with that, starting on my left, I'd like the members of the Canvassing Board to briefly introduce themselves to those gathered here and to the public.
Good afternoon. My name is Arlene Perkio, and I am a district court judge in the 1st Judicial District. I'm chambered in Dakota County.
And I'm David Knutson, also a district court judge, chambered in Dakota County out of the 1st Judicial District.
Steve Simon, Minnesota Secretary of State.
Barry Anderson, Associate Justice, Minnesota Supreme Court.
Paul Thiessen, also Associate Justice of the Supreme Court.
Thank you, members, for serving. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. This should have been given to all members of the Canvassing Board before the meeting. I would now entertain a motion to approve the agenda as proposed.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion prevails, and the agenda is approved. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of August 16th, 2022. That was the last meeting of this body. I would call on Justice Anderson for that motion, since he was here.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The motion prevails, and the minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is the presentation of the canvass report for the November 8th, 2022 state general election. And for that, I will call on Minnesota State Director of Elections, David Maeda. Mr. Maeda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Good afternoon. So we have two different reports in front of you. I'll be covering the one that was on the top of your pile first. These are the results that were canvassed by our 87 counties. I won't go and verbally read any of the results into the record. Certainly, if any of you have questions about any of the races in the report, I'm happy to try to answer your question. I will kind of point out where things are found in the report. So pages 1 through 4 are the statistics from Election Day. One thing to note is we had about 2.5 million voters who voted in the November 8th election. The last comparable election, 2018, we actually had more. We had 2.6 million voters in 2018. 2018, a lot goes into who turns out, obviously, but in 2018, you might recall that both U.S. Senate races in our state were on the 2018 November ballot. We had a special election for Senator Smith's seat, and then Senator Klobuchar's seat was on the regular election ballot. So that was a little bit unique election, but we did have 2.5 million voters vote for the November 8th, 2022 election, and those are captured on pages 1 through 4 of your report. I'll note absentee voting, we had 671,000 people vote by absentee for the 2022 election. This is a little bit higher than 2018. In 2018, we had 637,000 absentee voters. It was quite a bit less than 2020 when we had about 1.9 million absentee voters. Of course, the pandemic played a role in that. But absentee voting remains a very popular way to vote for many Minnesotans. Pages 4 through 9 of the report go through the 8 congressional races that were on the ballots throughout the state. Obviously, 2022 was a redistricting year, and we thankfully retained all 8 congressional seats, and those election results are on pages 4 through 9 of your report. Starting on page 9, going through page 25 are our state Senate races, and again, because of redistricting, the entire legislature was on the ballot this year in our state. So pages 9 through 25 cover the state Senate races. Pages 25 through 54 cover the state representative races. Pages 55 through 71 cover the constitutional offices. All 4 constitution offices are on the ballot in November. And then pages 71 through up the end of the report of page 136 covers all the judicial election results. There are 2 pages kind of tacked onto the end of the report. What these are, so for write-in candidates for federal, state, and county races, they have to file a written request to have their results reported. And the final 2 pages of your report are all the write-in results for candidates that filed that request. Interesting to note, if you might have seen in the news, it's not a federal, state, or county race, but in the city of Birchwood Village in Washington County, they actually had a mayoral write-in candidate win the race, which is pretty unique in an election in our state. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you for any questions that the canvassing board might have.
Any questions from members? Any questions of Mr. Maeda or comments? Okay, seeing no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion for approval of the canvass report.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion to approve the canvassing report for the November 8th, 2022 state general election as presented by Elections Director David Maeda. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion prevails, and the canvassing report as presented is adopted. The next item on the agenda is presentation of the post-election review. I'll turn it over again to State Elections Director, Mr. David Maeda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And for those of you who are not familiar with our post-election review law, it actually came into place for the first time in the 2006 election. And what it does is all 87 counties have to randomly select precincts within their county and then hand count certain races. So for the 2022 election, the races that were hand counted were the U.S. representative races in all 8 congressional districts, and then the governor, lieutenant governor race. And so the counties randomly select precincts. The number of precincts that they randomly select is based on the registered voter total. So in counties of less than 50,000 registered voters, they have to select a minimum of 2 precincts to hand count. In counties between 50,000 and 100,000 registered voters, they select up to 3. And then any county over 100,000 has to select either 4 precincts or 3% of their total precincts, whichever is greater. And so these are the results of the post-election review hand counts that were done in all 87 counties. Again, I won't go through the entire report. One of the things I will note is on page 4, in Watonwan County, I'll just note this, that there was an issue that came up, and we learned about it the week before the election when the counties began processing their absentee and mail ballots. Some of the counties that used a particular vendor to fold their absentee ballots, there was a fold that went through vote targets, and that would, if the voter voted another candidate in that race and it happened, the fold happened to go through, and it was a write-in line, then it would appear that race was overvoted and it wouldn't be counted. We worked hard with the equipment vendor of these counties to make sure that the counties we're checking overvoted absentee ballots to make sure that this folding issue wasn't causing the overvote. There's basically two ways our counties count absentee votes. In our smallest counties, they use the precinct tabulator, so similar to the tabulator you use when you go into your polling place to vote, they use that same device to feed in their absentee ballots. Those are our smallest counties, and if they use that, if you've ever overvoted a ballot at your polling place, you know that the machine gives you an error message saying, I can't read this race, it's overvoted. Is that what you meant to do? And you either have the choice to spoil your ballot and then get a new ballot and vote a new ballot, or you can ask the machine to count all the other races. It won't count the race it can't read, but it'll count all the other races on the ballot. So if the county is using the precinct tabulator, that would have been the process. The ballot would have been returned to the election judges, and it would have said, this race is overvoted, and then the election judges could then determine whether legitimately it was overvoted or it was this folded ballot issue. For the majority of our counties, they use high-speed central count tabulators to tabulate absentee and mail ballots. And there is a setting on that high-speed scanner where you can have it ignore overvotes and just count the votes that on the ballot that the tabulator can read. The voting system vendor did instruct the counties to make sure that all overvoted ballots were being spit out or outstacked into a tray for human review of races to make sure it indeed was not the folded ballot issue. The process for then tabulating those, the vendor discovered that if you really flattened the fold, it would read correctly, the machine would read correctly. And so that was the instruction that they were given to the counties. The counties also, if the ballot couldn't be read, there's a process where election judges duplicate ballots. So if a ballot can't be read, election judges from different political parties duplicate the ballot that can't be read onto a ballot that can be read. So that process was followed as well for any of the folding ballot issues. And I'll just note, I've been in election administration since 1996, and this has always been an issue with optical scan ballots, because if you fold through a voting target, it's going to maybe read it as a mark. In my previous job as a city clerk of Minnetonka, we folded our own ballots using a folding machine, and we always had to play around with the settings to make sure it didn't actually hit a vote target. So it is something that optical scan technology, I think it proves that our voting systems work because it actually does catch something that looks like a vote and notifies the voter of the potential of an overvote. That said, we had two counties on page 4, as I was mentioning. Watonwan County had a number of overvoted ballots when they did their post-election review. And so they actually, what the law is, if you have an explainable difference, and as we saw in every recount we've conducted, our voters are very creative in the way they mark ballots. So they might not fill in the vote target, they might circle the name, they might put an X to the name. Our law is, those are explainable differences and they don't go against the statutory threshold of 1/4% difference between the hand count and the machine count. So if that type of vote we can count, but if they can't explain why the machine didn't read the vote correctly, then they have to, and it goes beyond the threshold of 1/4%, then more precincts have to be randomly selected in that county. And that's what happened in Watonwan County, and that's what happened in Becker County. They had the overvoted ballot issues that they didn't catch in those precincts that were hand counted, and so they escalated to include more counts. And as you see the report, the additional precincts showed no further discrepancies in the hand counts. As I mentioned, Watonwan County on page 4, it added 6 votes to Representative Finstead and 5 votes to Jeff Ettinger, his opponent. And then on page 22 in Becker County, in the governor's race, 6 votes were added to Scott Jensen's total and 2 for Governor Walz. And so thankfully, the machines caught the mistake, and it was further caught during the post-election review. The last thing I'll mention about this document is we had some counties in our state that actually went above what they are statutorily required to do. So on page 19, Crow Wing County, which is a county under 50,000 registered voters, so by statute, they only had to do 2 precincts. they actually chose to do 4. And as you see, there were no further discrepancies in any of their results. And then the last 2 pages of the report, Anoka County and Sherburne County chose to hand count additional races. So in Anoka County, the Secretary of State's race was included in the audit, and in Sherburne County, the Secretary of State and Attorney General's races were counted. So we had some counties that went above what we do by statute.
Overachievers, huh?
Absolutely. Thank you. The last thing I will mention is some of us in our office during the summer met with a national expert on post-election audits that are done throughout the country in different states, and she thought our law is pretty good. And the thing that she said was unique to our law is we actually take the results from the post-election audit, so the votes that get added by looking at a ballot, or hand counting a ballot, those results actually get incorporated into the results you're going to certify, and that's unique to Minnesota. So I think we are continuing to look at ways we can strengthen our post-election audit, given the environment of people questioning the accuracy of our voting equipment. But I think our audits have shown since 2006 our voting equipment is very, very accurate. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I just want to make an absolutely clean record, Mr. Maid, I want to make sure I understand correctly. Tell me if I'm not understanding correctly, that you mentioned 2 instances where there was a so-called escalation, meaning if there was a difference that was bigger than a certain percentage, they then have to do a deeper dive, so to speak, into more votes and more precincts. But in the end, those numbers were, after that deeper dive, fully reconciled. Is that right?
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure we understand that. Yep. Any other comments or questions by members? Okay, seeing no comments and questions, I would entertain a motion to adopt the report of the post-election equipment review as presented by Mr. David Maeda, Director of Elections, Office of the Minnesota Secretary of State, and to direct the integration of the vote changes found in the post-election equipment review into the general election canvassing report and approve that integrated report. That would be the suggested motion.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion on the motion, all in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion prevails, and the report, as integrated, is adopted. The next item on the agenda is the signing of the certification. So I will sign myself. I will pass it to my left. Thank you, members. The next item on the agenda is selection of the post-election performance review precincts. All board members will be a part of this. Actually, I won't, but the judges and justices will. What we do under state law is a post-election performance review, another form of post-election audit. So to supplement all of the other processes that we've already talked about here today, we do another one at the statewide level, layered on top of all those other processes. Namely, what we do is in 4 randomly selected precincts per congressional district, and of course, we have 8 congressional districts, so for a total of 32, we will select, or the judges and justices will select, precincts, so 4 in each congressional district. And those will then be subject to a deeper dive, so to speak, on selected races in selected places, just to make sure that we are checking our work. I need, in light of recent events, to raise something, though, and this is just my personal prerogative. I'm not speaking for any other board member. It would be a legitimate question for someone to say, well, since your deeper dive consists of a hand count in some sense, why not just hand count the whole election? There are advocates nationally and some in Minnesota who counsel that approach. And they point to nations like France and Israel who do national elections with a hand count. But my response to that is pretty clear and I think consistent. First of all, it's much easier to do with one contest on the ballot in any jurisdiction, which was the case recently in France and in Israel. Very difficult to do when you have literally dozens of contests on the ballot. In my own, in Hopkins, Minnesota, I think we had close to 40 contests when you consider all the judicial contests as well. It's very difficult to do. And when you do a hand count of multiple contests on a statewide basis, in any state that I'm aware of, it is not only less accurate, provably so, less accurate, it is much more time-consuming and is much more expensive. To use the analogy that someone in our office frequently uses, I like it and it's a good one, if you make a pot of soup, you don't have to consume the entire pot of soup to know whether it's too salty. You just need a couple of spoonfuls. And that's the approach that our legislature, in my judgment, wisely has taken, not just for years, but for many decades. We have a number of spoonfuls, in this case, 32 spoonfuls, 4 from each congressional district, and that ought to tell us something about the accuracy, layered on top of the other levels that we just finished talking about in this meeting. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of perspective and background for what we're about to undertake. Again, we're going to have randomly drawn precincts, 4 in each congressional district, and those will be subject to that deeper dive by our office, just to check the work that we've already checked at least once. So with that, there will be 8 envelopes containing labels with the names of all precincts selected for post-election review, divided by congressional district. The first envelope containing all the precincts in the 1st congressional district that were chosen for post-election review will be opened, and the labels will all be placed in a container, and they will be mixed up. 2 Supreme Court justices and 2 district court judges each will draw 1 label from the container and will read the name of the precinct drawn. The name will then be recorded from someone in the Office of Secretary of State, Mr. Charles Cox in this case. The labels with the names on the selected precincts will be placed on the recording sheet, and the other labels will be put back into the 1st congressional district envelope. And then we're going to repeat that process for the other 7 congressional districts. One note of history and humor, I'm told this was before my time, this was during my predecessor's time in this office. Once upon a time, there was a meeting just like this after a November general election, and one of the justices on the panel, I'm told, according to folklore, was Justice Alan Page. And there was that exact bowl, I'm told, which, to those who can see it, is like a sort of a fishbowl configuration with a tapered top. And according to legend and lore, Justice Page stuck his giant NFL Hall of Fame hand into that bowl and momentarily got it stuck. I don't think that's a threat for anyone here, but it's an interesting footnote to history. So
Yeah,
with
there
that,
are no Hall of Fame hands here, so
no,
we're good.
no. So with that, why don't we proceed? Can you advise what is the best way we should do this? Should we just do it in order this way or any particular way?
Why don't you start right down there and go this way?
Yeah.
You're standing there.
Let's do that.
So we'll just do this for each of the districts?
And just so we understand, this is for the 1st congressional
First
district.
congressional
Right.
district, yeah, if you could read the one that you draw, so we can get that on the record.
Harmony Township, Fillmore County, Congressional District 1.
Westfield Township, Dodge County, Congressional District 1.
Winner is Houston County, Congressional District 1.
Pleasant Valley, Mauer County, Congressional District 1.
Okay. Thank you. And again, we'll be repeating this process for congressional districts 2 through 8.
West St. Paul, W3P2, Dakota County, Congressional District 2.
New Prague, Precinct 2, Scott County, Congressional District 2.
Shakopee, Precinct 6, Scott County, Congressional District 2.
Cleveland Township, LeSueur County, Congressional District 2.
Mound, Precinct 2, Hennepin County, Congressional District 3.
Rogers, Precinct 3, Hennepin County, Congressional District 3.
Minnetonka, Ward 4, Precinct A, Hennepin County, Congressional District 3.
Wayzata, Precinct 1, Hennepin County, Congressional District 3.
New Brighton, Precinct 5, Ramsey County, Congressional District 4.
St. Paul, Ward 7, Precinct 13, Ramsey County, Congressional District 4.
Little Canada, Precinct 2, Ramsey County, Congressional District 4.
Matamidi, Precinct 1, Washington County, Congressional District 4.
We're halfway done.
Hey, there you go. No, I don't think so.
Minneapolis, Ward 13, Precinct 1, Hennepin County, Congressional District 5.
That's my precinct.
You win a prize.
Sorry.
Minneapolis, Ward 3, Precinct 4, Hennepin County, Congressional District 5.
So there you go. He doesn't get to pick. Minneapolis, Ward 13, Precinct 3, Hennepin County, Congressional District 5. Oh, there you go.
Ridley, Ward 2, Precinct 1, Anoka County, Congressional District 5.
Andover, Precinct 3, Anoka County, Congressional District 6.
Blaine, Ward 2, Precinct 1, Anoka County, Congressional District 6.
Andover, Precinct 5, Anoka County, Congressional District 6.
Collegeville Township, Precinct 1, Stearns County, Congressional District 6.
I think I can figure out what that is, right?
Holmes City Township, Douglas County, Congressional District 7.
Westbrook, Cottonwood County, Congressional District 7.
Breckenridge, Precinct 1, Wilkin County, Congressional District 7.
Polk Center Township, Pennington County, Congressional District 7.
Spencer Brook Township, Isani County, Congressional District 8.
Crooked Lake Township, Cass County, Congressional District 8.
Got a lot in this book. Grand Marais, East Precinct 5, Cook County, Congressional District 8.
Bremen Township, Pine County, Congressional District 8.
Okay, thank you, members. So we have now drawn, as a body, 32 different precincts, which will be the subject now of a so-called deeper dive, post-election review from our office, 4 in each congressional district. So I thank members for doing that drawing. At this time, I would suggest, or I would entertain a motion to approve the recount, a motion to approve the selection of the post-election performance review precincts as chosen by lot at this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The motion prevails, and the post-election performance review precincts as chosen by lot at this meeting have been approved. The next item on this agenda is the contingent recount plan for possible publicly funded recounts in House Districts 3A and 3B. Mr. Maeda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So in front of you is our plan for the potential publicly funded recounts in House Districts 3A and 3B. Both of those races fell within the threshold of 0.5%, which qualifies them for a publicly funded recount. The candidates do have to request the recount, and right before the meeting, I got that notification. So there will be recounts in both House District 3A and 3B, which House District 3A incorporates 5 different counties. It's Itasca, Cook, Coochin, St. Louis, and Lake counties, and then 3B is Lake and St. Louis counties. I've been this plan would designate me as a state recount official and then authorize me to designate deputy recount officials in the counties. I have been in touch with all 5 counties. The recounts will begin next week. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I have one, just to make sure that the record is clean here, which is, you've mentioned that you've been in touch with those counties. Have they agreed to undertake that work?
Mr. Chair, yes, all 5 have said yes.
Any other questions or comments from any members?
So, Mr. Secretary, just quick.
Yes, Judge Knutson.
So we've got the contingent plan for the publicly funded recount. And I think in the minutes, the primary canvassing board went through the same process and approved the plans, correct?
Mr. Chair, Judge Knut, that's correct.
And so are there any changes that were made between August and this canvassing board?
Mr. Chair,
Maeda?
no, there were not.
Any other questions or comments from members? Okay, well then, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the recount plan and appoint the recount official listed in the plan for the recount of the elections for House District 3A and 3B.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any discussion to the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion prevails, and the recount plan is adopted. The next item on the agenda is the contingent recount plan for possible discretionary recounts. Mr. Maeda?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, so what this is, any losing candidate for any office can request a recount. If it doesn't fall within the threshold for a publicly funded recount, the candidate has to pay for the recount, and that's what's in this plan. Again, you're designating me as the state recount official, and I would work with any affected counties, depending on if a candidate asks for a discretionary recount.
Mr. Maeda, I'll ask the question, do you know of any at this time, discretionary recounts that are likely to take place?
We've been notified of one state senate candidate that might request a discretionary recount.
And just for the record, how long does that campaign or does that candidate have to request such a recount?
Mr. Chair and members of the board, they have until Thursday, through Thursday.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to approve the recount plan and appoint the recount official listed in the plan for any contingent discretionary recounts requested before expiration of the contest period. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The motion prevails, and the contingent discretionary recount plan is adopted. The next item is simply announcements, and I have just one overarching announcement, and it's really a thank you. I want to thank all the people who don't get enough recognition for the work they did in putting on this statewide general election. There are a lot of moving parts to a statewide general election, or an election of any kind. It takes 30,000 election judges or poll workers to stand up and step up and do that job. They don't do it to get rich. They don't do it for their health. They do it because of a sense of civic engagement, and it's a long day. If you've ever set foot in a polling place, you know it's a long day, and it requires a lot of patience and a lot of fortitude. It's not just being there from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., it's getting there an hour or two early and sometimes staying an hour or two or more late. I also want to thank the full-time elections administrators in all 87 counties and in untold numbers of cities and townships who really put their all into these statewide elections. And lastly, I hope folks will indulge me in thanking the folks in our elections team in our office who put together this meeting painstakingly, as they always do, and do such great work year in and year out. So I want to thank them and anyone else I've forgotten who had any hand in this general election in November of 2022. I have no other announcements other than to say that this, are there any other comments or announcements by any other member? Then my only concluding announcement is that this meeting of the State Canvassing Board is recessed. It's not adjourned, it is recessed to the call of the chair to receive the recount report, if requested, for House Districts 3A and 3B, and any requested discretionary recounts completed at that time. We have heard informally, as you heard, that there will be a request in at least one of the House races. So unless there's anything else from any other member, we stand in recess to the call of the chair.